Hello and welcome back to another episode of Notion Bonsai, and today we're going to be repotting this great big Osakazuki Japanese maple bonsai. So this is the tree that we're going to be working on. It's got a great big thick trunk, and when it comes to repotting Japanese maples, the best time to do so is early spring, and a good sign to repot is just as the buds on the tree begin to open. That's when the energy begins to move up from the roots into the branches, and when this happens, it's completely safe to work on the roots. And now before we begin, the tools that I'll be using in this video today are a root hook, or you could use a chopstick, a root rake, and some wire cutters. And now, as always, you don't need all of these specialized tools to do bonsai. If you're a beginner to bonsai, you can get by with an ordinary pair of garden scissors, an ordinary root rake, anything to really loosen up the soil from the tree. And you can use some garden scissors instead of root pruning shears. Just make sure that whatever tools that you do use are clean and sharp. Clean so you don't introduce any fungus or bacterial problems in the tree, and sharp because a clean cut will heal so much faster and more efficiently than a blunt cut where you used a blunt pair of scissors and sort of squash the roots. So let's try and get this out of the pot as safely as we can. When working with large bonsai, it can be tempting to dump it over like this, and sometimes the branches will hit your table and they'll snap off and it will damage all the nice foliage and branches on top. And when grabbing the trunk, you want to make sure you're not grabbing any newly forming buds that are quite close to the trunk. So I'm going to start by grabbing the base of the trunk, and I'm going to lift up and see if this loosens pretty easily. Okay, that came out pretty well, and I can see there's lots of healthy roots here. I'm going to start on the surface of the soil. I'm going to take this root rake and just rake outward from the trunk. And all I really want to do here is loosen up this old soil, get rid of any weeds. There's lots and lots of loose soil on the top here. It's just coming off by hand. When you rake in bonsai, you want to rake outward from the trunk. That way you don't tear across any roots that way. So as I work on this, I'm going to rotate the tree. You can see here on the trunk, when I got this tree, it came and there was a lot of the trunk rotting here. What I did last year, I scraped off all the rotting parts and covered this whole area in some cut putty in the hopes that it heals over in the future. And as I rake on the top layer of soil, what I'm looking to find is the nibari, which is essentially the surface roots or root spread. I'm going to dig down a little to see what we can find. And I'm really happy that this soil isn't compact. It's just falling away really nicely. And as I work on the roots, it can look quite violent because I'm going at it quite quickly. But what I'm doing is just jabbing at the roots. I'm not pulling and tearing through them, just quick little short jabs. And this little jabbing technique, as you can see down here, it loosens up the old soil without tearing through any of the roots. So it can look quite aggressive, but I promise this is quite okay for the roots. I'm going to take the root hook. This will help me a little bit with loosening the soil. I find this gets in just a little deeper. And whenever you make the switch from a chopstick to a root hook like this on much larger trees, you really see the benefits of the root hook versus the chopstick. It's just able to do it more efficiently. Now I'm going to gently take the tree and lay it on its side, being extremely careful not to break any branches on top. Now working on the underside, same rules apply. I'm going to work outward from the trunk, so outward from the center here like this. You can really just take your time with this, there's no rush. I quite like doing root work. You don't have to panic that the roots are exposed to air or anything. If anything, being exposed to air helps oxygen get into there, which is a good thing for the tree. If it's a hot or windy day where you are, I advise keeping a spray bottle handy, just to mist the roots as you work on them so they don't dry out. So I've removed quite a lot of the old soil. I removed as much as I possibly can with a root hook and a rake. Now I'm going to take this, give this tree a little bit of a wash to see if we can jet off more of the old soil. So we're going to go fully bare root with this tree today. So I'm going to take the tree and put it into this basin, making sure that it's sitting nicely so I don't damage the branches. And we're just going to jet this with the hose. Okay, so from this point, I have two options. I can treat this as a finished bonsai and do some root work, remove any roots that's crossing or growing straight down or up, promote lateral growing roots to develop a better nibari, then take this tree, put it into a smaller pot and call it a day there where it's a bonsai. Or my second option is to treat this as a parent tree, meaning use this as a tree that I'll be taking cuttings and air layerings from as methods of propagation to create other bonsai from this. Because this is my only Osakazuki at the moment, I'm going to treat this as a parent tree, but also for the reason that it's got this nasty scar at the base. Maples with scars on the trunk don't usually demand that much value. So if I were to go to sell this, I would probably not get as much if it had been air layered from a nicer point. So going with the parent tree method, I'm not going to do any root work because I want to leave all these roots here to feed the tree as much as possible. I don't want to slow the tree down in its development, and if I prune the roots, the tree's going to have to spend a little bit of time recovering to grow more roots, and things will just happen generally a little bit slower. So for that reason, I'm going to keep all these roots here. My only reason for washing it was to remove as much of the old soil as possible. That way when we put in nice fresh bonsai soil, the roots have lots of oxygen, and as a result this tree will thrive. But as far as the roots go nibari wise, I don't really care how they look. So for this tree to really grow and thrive, I have decided to plant it into this giant pond basket. This will provide lots of oxygen to the roots with the air holes in the side. If I had land, I could probably even plant this directly into the ground. The soil mix that I'll be using in this video today is a mix of pumice, akadama and lava rock. This will give lots of aeration in the soil, but also water retention so the roots don't dry out. So I'm just putting a base layer along the bottom. And I don't want this tree sitting that high in this pot. I want to plant it nice and deep. So if I take this tree and sit it in just to see what's going on, yeah, I'd be happy enough with that height. That way I don't have to use soil the whole way to the top. I can save a little bit of soil just by planting it to here. And even in big pots like this, we still make the little mountain in the middle to get rid of any air gaps that may be in the soil. And just like a larger tree, I'm going to take a chopstick and just work out any air gaps that may be in the soil. And this will just ensure that when we water it, there's no air pockets and the water can reach all of the roots. Otherwise, if you water this and there's little air pockets, any areas where there is no water, the roots will die there. So we got to make sure we get all them air pockets out. With that, I am pretty happy. And then on top of the soil, I'm just going to place some of this sphagnum moss. And this will just help keep the humidity levels up in the soil. Sphagnum moss is also antifungal and antibacterial, so it will benefit the roots in that way. With each watering, small particles of this moss will find its way down into the soil. Then in, say, 3 weeks' time, I'll take this moss off here as all the leaves begin to open and the tree begins to establish itself in the pot. If we keep the sphagnum on here too long, the roots of the tree will begin to grow up into the moss. I suppose with this tree it's not such a bad thing because we don't really care about how the roots look, but with general bonsai, roots growing upward isn't really aesthetically pleasing. And with this approach of treating this as a parent tree, instead of thinking like we're going to create this a bonsai right now, we're thinking like 5, 10, 15, 20 years ahead with the development of this tree. And all that's left to do now is give this tree a water. And on that, I'm going to end off this video right here. If you enjoyed, please be sure to leave a like in this video. It really helps out the channel a lot with the YouTube algorithm. And let me know what you thought of this video down in the comments below. If there's anything you would have done differently, perhaps you would have turned this tree into a bonsai straight away and maybe turned the bottom of the trunk into a feature. I'd love to hear what you think. I'm always open to new and different ideas in bonsai. If you would like to support me and the things that I do on this channel, hit the thanks button down below. And if you'd like to stay updated on all the things that I do off camera, please follow me on Instagram. It's at notionbonsai, and you'll be able to see all the things that I do on there. But on that, thank you so very much for watching.